I suppose I'm going to do my mother 5 minutes of fame. Why wouldn't I do it with self-care right now? Deborah Ann Connor, my Lord, my mother. She had me in 1965. Whew, I was in her stomach at 64. 1964, she had me. She left for Washington, D.C. I was 1 year old. I was one. She told my grandparents there's no jobs here because it's a steel mill. And I like to go to your mother. Her mother is Eloise. Eloise Connor, my grandmother that raised me. So she told Eloise, can I go to Washington where your people are? She went and stayed with her grandmother, and she got a job with the Bell Atlantic telephone company. Then she would come. She wasn't an aborted mother. She didn't raise me, but she would come in April to see me. Easter, every Easter she would come. She would bring me an Easter basket. Thanksgiving and Christmas. Thanksgiving we used to have a banquet. The table would be so big, and then my mother's family from DC would come. They would come and it would be popping. Food everywhere. And they would call me Marky. My mother loved me. The birthday parties were amazing. My mother retired. She retired from that job, and then she retired. She was around 50. She retired around 53 years old, about 55, early. She told me, baby, she says, I want to retire while I can enjoy it. She retired, and then she used to go to Union Station. That is the train station in downtown in Washington, D.C. She says, baby, I want to be an independent contractor. She goes, I'm retired, but I want to start being a Picasso. So she wasn't painting, but this is what she did. She made around 500 Afghans. I took one when she passed, and then she would find picture prints. She would take the prints and then reframe them, and then she was selling them. Then she made bean pies like the Muslims, but she went a step further. She made all type of pies. She was selling them in the neighborhood. My mother also was a bond servant. I have a half brother. His name is Laren Connor, Ashley Connor. My mother, when I would go visit her, I would visit her, and all of his buddies from D.C. would be there, and they didn't have fathers. She pulled me to the side and she introduced me to all of them. And then she says, this is Laren's older brother, Mark. There were so many. Half the time there were 10 to 20 young African Americans greeting me, smiling and saying, your mother. I told them I already know. Mom would cook for them. They would live with her. She says, so many of them, son, they're homeless or they don't have a father. But she says, this is my ministry. My mother was a bond servant. She taught me, and then she told me this. I'm going to close it up with this. My mother, one day, she told me, she said, son, if you have food, some water, and your electric, and that rent's paid, she goes, you are so blessed, because she says that's all you really need. She goes, family, agape love. And she goes, but the key, she goes, I like what Jesus did. She says, because she goes, fellowship is this. You get around the table and you're thankful. She taught me that, because she says, baby, you got to realize life is not about getting a lot of things. Life's not being in. She goes, life isn't about forcing yourself in relationships. My mother was single the rest of her life because she says, I only loved one man. And then that didn't work. She goes, but I'm not going to let any man lay in my bed unauthorized. My mother said, baby, you can't have idols. She goes, one day you'll learn. She goes, but I'll wait. My mother passed in 2013. She was single, but she was happy because her happiness came for being a woman bond servant, serving her son, serving the community, serving the boys in the community. They didn't have no dads. I'm here to speak. Deborah Ann Connor, I salute you right now. My mother. I love you, mother. Mom, I love you. You did everything for me. You taught me so many lessons. And before I go right now, my mother was so before her time, like Luther Vandross was, like Prince and Michael Jackson, that it didn't even land The lessons that she taught me, I was so childish. I was mad at her because she was trying to teach me, but now I understand that she loved me so much. You'll know when true love comes because they'll challenge you. Deborah Ann Connor, I salute you, Mama. I love you from the Church Without Judgment. I introduced you to my mother. She liked jewelry. She could dress. She worked hard. She bought like 5 homes in D.C. Her last home was across from Congressional Cemetery. Yes, the Congressional. It's a 5-star cemetery. And we afforded it because my brother said, we must do it for Mama. Deborah Ann Connor, I love you from the Church Without Judgment. Mother, I'll see you soon. Bye-bye. Your brother Mark, you guys, that's my mom.